Good day, everybody, and welcome to the March edition, the March 2025 edition of Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. This is the premiere show for discussing releases in the metal music world where a bird has graced the cover. Yes, so we'll be taking a look at a bunch of albums that are metal music or metal adjacent, and some sort of avian creature has been depicted on the cover in some form. I'm not very picky on which bird and in what format and how prominent. It's, just a fun way to feature a variety of different albums on this show. I don't have a lot to say here at the beginning this time. Last episode was deluxe size because I had a bunch of reporting to do about live concerts I'd been to, and there was a ton of albums to go through. March is looking also pretty stacked with albums, so I think it's better that I jump into them rather quickly. But I wanted to maybe clarify a little bit about how I make the choices on where I get the info on albums to feature on the show, and in particular about the metal adjacent albums that I mentioned earlier. Now, if you've been listening to this show for a good while, you may realize that every once in a while I slip in an album which is very debatable if it counts as metal music, and I'm using a very broad metal umbrella here. I don't have any problem classifying metalcore as metal music, although I know that that's a point of consternation in certain parts of the culture, and even more established ones, but which ones might have be a little bit poo-pooed by other sections of the group, like nu metal or grunge. I don't have any problem also classifying those as metal and having them on the show. I try to have a very broad, big tent take on this matter. That doesn't mean that there aren't sometimes such corner cases that, even I'm just like, you guys, this one's not really, I don't know, some of you might remember some of the choices I've made. And I wanted to just explain how do I end up on those and why indeed do I keep them here. So, one of the big criteria that I do actually use to kind of filter all the choices available is that I pay attention to physical releases. And maybe in a future episode, I will actually show where I look up some of these albums that are coming out. And, that'll maybe, I don't know, maybe that'll take away the magic, because then you can just look them up for yourselves rather than watch this show. But I'll think about it. But the point is, I do look quite a bit at physical releases of albums, CDs in particular, because I'm rather proud of my CD collection. I will admit at this point, of course, I do not buy every single album that I feature on the show. I can't afford to do that because I'm not a professional reviewer getting review copies. I'm just a guy following the scene. So I cannot afford to get all of these albums. And I don't think I've bought any of the albums, actually have bought physical copies yet of any of the albums featured on this show. I do support whatever is my favorite album of the month, so I have gotten all of them digitally, and sometimes I've gotten a few more digitally as well, not just the number one album of the month that was my favorite. But I do still use that as a bit of a kind of filter, is it having a release physically, the album? And I can talk about that a little bit more if I talk about my selection criteria more broadly, but understand then that that's kind of really what brings these albums up to my eyes, basically. Incidentally, this is how I also end up featuring every once in a while albums which are not recent, like the original releases of the albums are, years and years ago. If I wanted to just, otherwise willy-nilly just do old albums, I would not be starved for content. I wouldn't have to talk about new albums at all. Like, I could basically just focus on the multitude of like old albums. But, I'd like to focus on new albums. But, when I'm paying attention to physical releases, whenever there's a re-release, that's like, hey, that's a good excuse for me to talk about this old album. Take a little bit of a time machine. And, because if it's getting a physical release, there must be some interest for it as well, I suppose, Someone has deemed that, like, it's, an interesting enough piece of metal music history to bring it back up. But yeah, also, what basically happens is that I'm also checking these metal releases, and sometimes albums get cataloged with the metal albums, which, again, I don't know if they entirely fit the specs of being in the metal genre. And, I take that as a challenge. That's why I keep featuring them here, I suppose, primarily. I see those come up, and I note, well, that's an album with a bird on the cover. Neo-folk. Okay. Like, weird indie pop, maybe only, like, slightly, like, heavy metalish riffs somewhere in there. Okay, you know what? Let's try this anyway. So it's just part of my weird filtering criteria, which brings up sometimes these odd outliers. I don't know why the album providers, why they make how they decide to, like, classify what album as what, because then there's also, like, weird, bizarre cross references where, like, some really heavy albums end up classified with something else bizarre, and those I might miss, but thankfully that doesn't happen super often, so I don't pay a ton of attention to the actual genres that aren't metal, in that sense. But yeah, I just like, I'm open to these ideas, and when I get, like, offered these, and I'm like, well, that fits the criteria bird-wise, maybe not the music, but let's give it a go. And I do think it's, like, maybe good for people deep in the metal genre to sample a broad spectrum of music. Like, I said that I want to be very big tent in, like, accepting what counts as metal music, and I maybe want to be even more big tent in maybe, allowing myself and you at home by proxy to listen to music that might land outside the genre. I don't want to stereotype or, like, typify members of the community because, well, the simple fact is that the community is much, much too large for that to even be feasible. Certainly. No, that's not going to happen. But I do know what I read of, takes from people outside the metal community. There's an insularness and a kind of real, like, focus on there are members of the metal community who just kind of that's all they want to listen to, and they have even a bit of a derisive take on non-metal music, and I don't personally think that's a super good attitude. I think having an willingness for open, broad horizons is probably a good idea. Like, certainly, maybe 15 years in the past, no, more correct, 20 years in the past, you look at a younger and angrier me, I would probably try to be like, yeah, I don't listen to metal music because that's cool music. I don't know if I'd be that blunt, but something in that direction. But I think, me personally, in my older years, broadening my spectrums has been a positive effect on my music tastes and my general vibes. So I would hope that I would hope that I could also encourage that in other people. I do not wish to tell people what to listen to, obviously. I realize this is sort of a review show, so I guess I kind of am in a way. I'm giving my impressions and recommendations on what to listen to, but I don't want to be gatekeeping in a bizarre inverted gatekeeping, like you have to broaden your horizon and listen to something else. Perhaps you are a very chill person who just happens to have very clear, broadly, very clearly defined interests. So, you just know what you like and you don't want to like stray outside of that zone. And that's fine with me too, obviously. Like that's, more power to you. So, if in that case, whenever I feature a bizarre album which doesn't exactly fit the mold, at least I hope you can at least, react to that in a good enough humor to not like take it too hard, like just be willing to like jump ahead to the next album, basically, if it's a bridge too far for you. I just want community in general to be chill, okay? Even the metal community with all of its intense emotions. I just hope everyone can be chill ultimately. So that's a big dumb disclaimer, because today we might be featuring at least one album, or maybe more, which, once again, does this match the assignment in terms of genre? It matches the assignment in terms of birds, but actually, this month's going to be fun, because there's also an inverted case where it's definitely metal music, but the bird assignment is an incredibly huge stretch. And I'm curious to see how people are going to react to that. I'm going to stick with my guns on this one too, but I don't want to spoil it here in the preamble, what I'm talking about. So just listen to it and try to spot for the one where you're like, wait, what? What's this got to do with birds? And maybe you'll see things my way. I don't know. That'd be crazy if that one's going to be more controversial than some of the bizarre genre picks, rather than this pick as a bird theme. that would actually be really, really funny if that's the one that I get excoriated for. Well, I'll take it. Whatever. Okay, I said I wouldn't talk too much, but somehow I managed to ramble for 12 minutes. Let's get on with them albums, okay? Because we got a lot to cover once again. Please enjoy, everybody. Alright, everybody, let's get this show on the road with probably the most high-profile album that's releasing this month, and it's the first thing we talk about. Well, funny how that goes. So, if you have been paying attention to my previous episodes, I almost always order the albums in alphabetic order of band names, which seems to be the fairest thing to do, with the, very small exceptions, like last month when I featured Savage Lands as the first thing, as a little bit of a PSA. But so, that means, basically, once we start at A, Arch Enemy and their 13th album, Blood Dynasty, ends up being the very first album we feature here. Yeah, Arch Enemy, Sweden's melodic death tour de force ensemble classic. Before we get into everything, I should probably preface that I'm a pretty recent convert to Arch Enemy. Like, obviously, I've known this band for years because they already got acclaim in the 2000s. And, they're melodic death, so they should be in my wheelhouse. But I have to admit that it didn't never really click very well with me when I was younger. I can't remember if it was a live album or like some kind of just best-of collection, but I had one Arch Enemy album growing up. And so I had a pretty good sampling of all their music, and it just didn't really click with me. I don't remember ever listening to it more than a couple of times, and I'm not sure I have that album anymore. Like, Nemesis is probably their biggest song, and that just kind of doesn't really do anything for me, so yeah. But for whatever reason, their previous album, Deceivers, that came out 2022, I think? I don't know why, but with that, everything came together in a way that I really liked. The guitar riffing was really cool and really creative. The instruments were on point. Alyssa White-Gluz's lyrics, singing was super cool. It just seemed a cut above what I had heard from Arch Enemy before. So, yeah, I've been hyping this album coming out for a while now because it's just cool to feature such a high-profile band on this show. But yeah, I am a bit of a poser, I suppose, in that this isn't really one of my wheelhouse bands, except that only recently I've jumped on the bandwagon. So, very excited to hear this actual album, this new content. Will that streak continue for me? But before we get to that, of course, the bird on the album cover. And we'll talk about that in the album cover and then the music. So the bird here is pretty easy to spot. There's a kind of a goofy-looking crow over there on the right, resting on that rightmost Empress's shoulder and picking at the exposed flesh of her neck, which is gross but very on point with this album theme and kind of cool. I don't know. The bird looks a bit goofy, and it's, I don't know if it adds a whole lot to the image, but yeah, it does add to the, like, visceral grody-ness of the image by having it, like, just being a carrion bird eating off this undead person. So, like, I don't think it's a bad addition to this image at all. And overall, I think it's a pretty cool album cover. The muted colors are an inspired choice, but I think it works pretty well, and it's just the kind of fleshy redness, a little Silent Hill-ish, maybe you want to say, kind of adds to the, it's supposed to feel a little gross. Like, if I'm straight, this album cover is pretty kind of weird and nasty, but that's definitely a deliberate design choice, so I do kind of like it. So, and these undead monarchs here are pretty cool designed, including the one werewolf among all these skeletons. And I really like that the row of kids here are kind of human kids, but they're also, like, kind of mutating groddily, which, like, the visual metaphor there is really great, that, like, they're still human, like, there's still humanity in them, because they're still kids, they're innocent. And, but, generational trauma is not the right word, but, like, generational influence being what it is, the rot from these awful sovereigns is already seeping into them and causing them to mutate. A very interesting concept that, it's been a little bit on my brain with, some heads of state and their children in real life. Like, yeah, interesting. Like, I guess they're kids now, but, like, what happens growing up in that world? I guess some. It's not a fault, but there's some, like, choices in the artwork that I'm like, why is it there? Is it just to vary the image up, or, like, why? I mentioned the werewolf, like, I'm not 100% sure why one of the when all four of the others are, like, skeleton dudes and skeleton lady. I don't know why there's one werewolf with a bullet or a smoking bullet wound in the forehead. Except, of course, someone will point out that on the album before Deceivers, there is also a wolf with a smoking forehead wound thing on it, so it's some kind of repeating motif with this artist who's done the art for all three of the last Arch Enemy albums. But yeah, I don't know, like in this context, I don't know why the one guy is a werewolf. And the other one that really sticks out is that kid on the far right. Why does he have a creepy, fused, organic flesh crown when every other character who has a crown in this image has basically a normal crown? Like, why does he do that? I don't know. And also, the middlemost skeleton, why is he stabbing himself in the head with the sword? Again, apart from that it looks really rad, like, I can't deny that. I don't know. It could really just be that it's just variety in the image. I'll fully admit that. So I'm not saying that I'm, like I don't like this image because of those elements, but they make me go, like, okay, like, kind of stop on them a little bit when I'm looking at this image. But, really strong visual, like, motif here, and, like, the message is, like, loud and clear, so it's very cool. Now, musically, I think what I liked about Deceivers, I'm gonna be comparing to the last album, since that's my touchstone on what I like about this band, just FYI. I guess I really like Deceivers, how it just opens up with a really cool, kind of ethereal guitar riff, and just some really cool, like, screaming guitars, just give cool vibes. This one, very different energy on the first song. Starts out with some kind of, like, little church choiry things, and then, like, just explodes into, some really aggressive, really leaning on the death metal more than the melodic, I would say. And I think that might be why I've never, before, really clicked with Arch Enemy, is I think that's a thing, that they kind of lean a little bit more on the death than the melodic, is my impression all throughout. And, I'm a big nerd, so I like the like really melodic death metal, you know. And, you know, I guess Deceivers leaned a little bit heavier on that. This one seems a little bit of more of a balance, a return to form, which means that I do think that I don't quite like this album as much as the last one. I'm not quite blown away, but there's some really cool guitar work to be found here. And if you prefer the more, you know, intense, in-your-face metal vibes, death vibes, I think this one's, you know, maybe for you for more. Yeah, you know, like in the first half, it's more that aggro, very deathy, with some very nice riffs mixed in, of course, and Alyssa's singing is still very cool and intense. This very Children of Voodoo this time, I get the feel, whatever reason. Not the keyboard work. I don't think they have a keyboardist, do they? No, they don't. Here on the lineup, they don't. But like something about the kind of classical vibe, the guitar work, and something about Alyssa's vocals gives me some voodoo energy here, which is kind of neat. And yeah, I would say that the second half of the album is more to my liking. That seems, you know, it's very palpable. The sixth song is like a little prelude to the seventh title track, and after that, like, I think there's more melodic tracks there that have like more, you know, interesting stuff going on. The second to last song, The Pendulum, even has like very much like, again, that classical music influence that's in Melodeath often, like in Voodoo, because there's some guitar work that sounds like someone's jamming on a harpsichord, but it's a guitar thing. So very cool stuff. Well, yeah, it's a pretty good album, but slightly less interesting to me than their previous effort, which is why you know, I'm a little bit more down on this. But I think absolutely still something worth checking out. And you know, there's individual songs that are going on my rotation from this album, definitely more than one. So yeah, good effort altogether. Okay, next up we go to the Swiss black metal orchestra Borgne, because it's like Borgne, but like try to pronounce it. How does a French person pronounce it, or a francophone person? Borgne. Let's go with that. And their 11th album, Renaître des Fanges. Je suis désolé pour ma français terrible. Yeah, okay, it's quite a striking album cover. I dig it quite a bit, and there are plenty of birds to look at here with a bunch of ravens perching on these tombstones, you know, that you can make out pretty nicely despite being so monochrome, but of course a larger flock flying about over the scene, so good ambience being added by this flock of crows, a murder of crows, of course, the proper term for a flock of crows. And altogether, you know, quite a cool album cover. Apropos of nothing, I like the alpine scenery adding into making this look really Swiss. You know, that's a inspired choice, but otherwise, pretty cool, like, haunted vibes. I mean, I don't know, it feels like cheating to say haunted when, you know, there's very obviously ghosts in the image, but yeah, no, the ghosts provide a cool little contrast to the really dark environs, the dark tombstones. And then overall, the balance of the image is nice with the spooky sky where the birds provide a little bit of contrast, but then also this darker image here at the bottom. Yeah, it's just a really, really haunting and cool vibes image, so I'm quite happy with this one. But the music, I don't think it quite landed with me, unfortunately, all that well. Every place I go to refers to this band as an industrial black metal band, and first of all, I have to lay my poseriness bare here, but I couldn't particularly tell what the industrial parts of the music are here. I guess it might be because there is a synth keyboard part of the music here, think it's synth, some kind of keyboard, and it's not going for like kind of high-spirited melodic vibes, but it's going more for like pretty dark ambience. So I guess that kind of gives it its industrial energy. Maybe I'm not 100 on that, but the point is, I thought this was pretty standard fare for a black metal album. Certainly, I guess, yeah, okay, the productions are definitely crisper than classic black metal, so I guess on that front also it's different and a little bit industrial. That it's pretty clean sound all throughout, and indeed there is in fact a keyboard helping out with the music here. But yeah, like, well, after a very extended intro, it goes on for like a minute at least, it actually starts rather slow to mid-tempo with a really ominous and kind of moody, dark song, and after a little bit of that, like about halfway through, it does transfer into big old blast beats and some big spooky, like, doomy vibes, or not doom like doom metal, but like, like really like apocalyptic vibes. It's just hammers really hard, and unfortunately, this is another case where, I've been with these black metal albums where it's the musicianship on display is really good. Like, the crisp sound, but then also like the singing is pretty cool. I love hearing angry, distorted vocals in French. That's kind of delightful. But they're pretty effective, and the guitar work is really nice, and it all comes together rather well. But I just can't find anything particularly to grab onto on this music. It's there's a little bit of variety again, like I said, in the tempo, but the overall mood is just that constant, like, gloomy, darkness, end of the world vibes, and it's not gonna be a song that I'm gonna be listening to very much afterwards. It was all right, but hey, if you are the kind of type who is tired by all the high praise I've been providing the last few months over all the like atmospheric black metal bands and all their cool vibes, maybe this one actually might be more than your alley if like you don't quite agree with my love for those. So this one more traditional, but I guess also the industrial vibes giving it a more of a different kind of edge, energy. So for that audience, might be cool. I probably won't return to this album again. So this was it, and yeah. So there you go. And it's time for one of those corner case albums where it's like, is this really even metal? Is this appropriate to bring up on the show? And I don't know, but here we are. This time it's Cloakroom with their new album called Last Leg of the Human Table. That's a really evocative album name. That might be sort of kind of the best part of this, honestly. It's like a pretty cool title, like really, yeah, I'd say evocative even if it's not easily interpreted. So like I dig it. So yeah, Cloakroom is primarily marked as a shoegaze band, and not black gaze, not anything else gaze that might be more obviously metal, just straight up shoegaze. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little bit vindicated, at least by the Wikipedia page for this band, which also lists doom metal as one of their, genres. So, like, that's at least in the metal category. Where the doom metal is on this album, I don't know. But yeah, this came up as a, upcoming album, which had a bird on the album cover, and it was categorized in places with metal bands. So here we are. Right, so the bird is, well, doesn't take long to find. It's, that dove among the, list of objects on that red band there on the left side. In fact, the dove is right there in the middle. I suppose if you wanted to be ducky, You could wonder that there's a second bird here, which is that egg, that's the third item from the bottom, which is cracking open. But, you know, there are animals other than just birds that are born from eggs like that, so we can't actually really make any judgments based on this image. Could be a crocodile coming out, or an echidna. So, yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really get this album cover, so I don't really know what to say. Well, I'll say that I like the throwback to a, vinyl album cover thing, like that round red object in the middle is supposed to, like, be a cutout showing the vinyl album underneath. And yes, like, the other releases, like CD release also, like, has this album cover, so it's, like, on purpose. So I guess throwback to old-timey, simple album covers is kind of neat, but I'm not smart enough to figure out what this list of items on the left is, so I don't know, like, are these, how these relate to the last leg of the human table? I don't know, unless this red band itself is the last leg of the human table, and these objects then are aspects of humans. But the trouble I have with that idea is that there's also an actual human in the image, that guy kneeling, the second from the top. So, I don't know. Maybe if I read through the lyrics, like, I would get some idea on why the selection of objects. In that light, I don't really know, yeah. The bird looks pretty, but I don't know what it, because I don't really understand what's going on. So, yeah, I'm stumped. Its starkness is neat, but trying to understand what it's about, I don't know. And musically, I wasn't super captivated by it. So very quickly, I think that why this might be considered adjacent to metal became apparent in the first song, which towards the end hits you with some really big and distorted guitar riffs, which definitely, like, evokes metal to some extent, although its primary vibes felt like, grunge music or Nine Inch Nails, which certainly the more traditional-minded metal heads out there would still shake their head at, like, not very impressed that that's the metal we're going for here. But after that first song, which does that, otherwise it kind of, fades away into what you might expect from a shoegaze/indie rock band. It's a lot of kind of easy listening, but also, like, very ethereal and dreamlike. There's, really, like, breezy keyboard work in the background with some, light guitar work. Sometimes the drums pick up the pace a little bit, but there's also just a lot of, like, really languid, might be the word I'd use, slow vibes in there. It's just only on a few occasions does it ever, like, get really rock out heavy. So and super appropriate to call it rock out heavy, but, like, again, the distorted guitars sometimes pop in. Interesting vibes on the very last song, where it's, like, now even more just ambient and even bigger, the, like, spooky ethereal fills with the keyboard. So that was kind of a compelling thing to wrap the album on, but I wasn't personally particularly interested by the breezy, almost post-rock-ish vibes going on elsewhere. It was a little bit too dreamlike. It felt like I was gonna enter a dream as I was listening to it. So, I don't know. I don't think I can really recommend this to most folks popping into this show. I mean, maybe you're looking for some real variety. So, from the fare of metal music that is normally featured here. So maybe this will deliver something for you, but outside of that group, I wasn't particularly enamored by this one. Now then, let's next take a listen with Cult of Fire and their 5th album, The One Who Is Made of Smoke. Right, so, a very interesting case here that I need to preface a little bit because they, you can probably tell from the little, is that Hindi or Sanskrit, that writing? I don't know. But the vibes of this album cover might tell you that this is a band which combines black metal with Vedic Hindu themes and Indian musicianship. Now, then, to be clear, this band is not from India. This is a Czech band. So, I don't know what the background of these guys is. And I don't exactly know, how, their background with Indian and Hindu lore or like history, culture. So I'm not really equipped to identify myself how authentic this is. So I don't know. Yeah, I can't really comment on that based on this sitting. I will say, as a public service, I suppose, if you are looking for Indian metal that like actually, is from India, then the same month, Bloodywood came out with their 2nd album, New Delhi, and that's that's as Indian as it gets. So if you want like Bhangra music combined with some pretty cool, hard-hitting new metal, check out Bloodywood's new release. It's really cool. It does not qualify itself for this show because there's no birds on the cover. So instead, we'll be looking at Cult of Fire again, which is thematic but not actually Indian, really. So yeah, I don't know. I almost overlooked this album because I think the birds at first are kind of easy to miss. Like, they kind of look like negative space in the image, so I almost overlooked them. But there is a pair of big old crows or ravens or what have you there at the bottom center of the screen. And there's a 3rd one, for whatever reason, over there on the right, at the middle right, next to this yogi or whatever this dude is. You can see a 3rd one there. I don't know why it's so asymmetric there, because the image is rather symmetric otherwise. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know the symbolism here. I don't know what the ravens represent. Like, twin ravens, if this was Viking metal, I'd just be like, Hugin and Moonin, but like, I don't know what the ravens represent in Vedic Hinduism, so I have no idea. I guess they're cool how they framed the image. Like I said, they kind of weird like negative space effect there, so that's kind of neat. And apart from that, it's a pretty cool album cover. Like, it gets the theme with the guy here, this yogi, and all these patterns here. And there's cool little snake motifs and interesting little elaborate shapes all over. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool. Oh yeah, and also I always a good monochrome image with when you can really pop it off very well. Works here very nicely. Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, musically, again, yeah. I should also maybe mention that I almost went to see these guys because, to be clear, again, they really embrace this theme. If you look up what they look like, they have crazy elaborate like robes and stuff, and they doll up their they doll up the stage to look like some kind of like ceremonial altar with decorations all over. So it looks really impressive. But once again, no idea how authentic it is to the culture, but it is certainly very amazingly visual. So I almost went to see these guys based on that alone, just like what a crazy concept and what a crazy look. I was like contemplating maybe seeing these guys. The plan definitely fell awry because this concert would have been in 2020 and, the pandemic happened. So, yeah. So, no. But, I will admit that I only gave them a short listen back then of like, okay, well, yeah, all right, that's what it's like. So I was kind of going into this pretty fresh then, all things considered, and it surprised me and positively all throughout, I have to say, this album. So first of all, the first song is an extended kind of instrumental build-up. So the second song is the real song, and I didn't notice any, musically I didn't notice any Indian influence on that first real song, the second song on the track. It was on the contrary, it was a pretty cool, like, really melancholic kind of melodic black metal song that, like, really impressed me. Like, that's kind of my wheelhouse, and I was like, oh yeah, this is super cool, I'm enjoying this. Maybe it was lyrically then closer to the theme then, but I couldn't tell. But yeah, after that really nice number, then they were like, oh hey, we gotta get on theme here. So then the influences start showing up. Like, the music becomes what you'd imagine like cult music being. Like, now it becomes like very like foreboding and dark and ominous. And now the like instruments start popping in. Like, there are sitars on occasion mixing in there with the black metal, which is an interesting choice. And definitely on that like third song, I noticed, like, I don't know what the percussion instrument is called. It's not a gong, but it's that more clangier like sound. Like what the heck do you hear? If you listen to the song "Rustic Asia" from the Tekken 6 soundtrack, that's the only thing I can think of right away. But more generally, if you imagine like some kind of like temple scenery in an Indian or Southeast Asian like movie set there, or you imagine like a wide shot of the river Ganges in some kind of National Geographic thing, those kind of like percussion instruments banging in the background. And then like at some song I heard the like whoop whoop sound, which I associate with Goa trance, another music genre, not really metal, but also very much associated with Indian and Hindu vibes. And like I was like very amused, like, okay, that's I get what we're going for here. But no, it was interesting. Like also the singing, like there's definitely where it indulges in like some kind of chanting, which maybe is Sanskrit or maybe is Hindi, I don't know, but definitely it's like indulging in like, this is cult ceremony singing, and it was interesting. And it actually this goes through a wide variety of emotions, this album, which I think is the idea, because the song titles are stuff like loss, mourning, anger, blessing, joy, stuff like that. So it reflects that by going through all sorts of like different moods. Like I said that it's like very melodic black metal, but then it slips into like that like dark cult, a little bit more standard black metal, and then again like goes for like the big melodic, now actually like feel good one. So we're almost moving into post-black a little bit with the vibes there. And I thought the musicianship was really solid, so I really enjoyed this. Again, I can't stress enough that I have no idea about the authenticity here, so and I'm not equipped to comment on that. But as a clueless person, just like enjoying the metal vibes and mixing with unusual instrumentation for that genre, I'm really positively impressed by this album. I really enjoyed it. So, here comes another one in the corner case, not quite metal, but we'll talk about it anyway, genre of music. That's right, Cloakroom wasn't even the only one this month. Good heavens, we are slipping, I guess. But whatever, we're having a good time. This is Danheim, the Danish music producer and ambient neo-folk music composer guy, and their album Mannavegr. I struggled to find out if this was their first or second album, because I believe he released both of these albums on the same year, so I kind of lost track which one was which. I think this is his second album, and it came out all the way in 2017, but for whatever reason it's gotten a re-release recently, I think by Season of Mist. Let me just confirm. Yes. So that's why we're looking at it now. Right. So album cover, Mannavegr. So we've done one neofolk band already on the show previously. That was Forndom? I never did work out how to pronounce it. Back in last year's December. And I have to say that the album cover theme is very similar in somber, really colors bleached out, Nordic visual. Now that was there was the sea, that was the coast in the previous one. This one is a field somewhere, and there's a little bit of color there, kind of weird little, splotch of color there on the edges there, I guess. But of course the bird is this. There was only one bird in the Forndom album, really just giving it like a lone sense of life. Here we have a little bit more with a flock of birds, which is a little hard to identify. Could be seagulls, could be crows, could be like blackbirds, but I don't know. They're all flying there, but adds noticeably more life to this album cover, which also a little bit of life with that field, although that field is looking quite dead. So yeah. I don't know. This seems to be the vibe for Nordic neofolk, is just have these really sad and gray, visuals, of nature. So I guess this checks out, and at least it fits the theme. I don't find them super interesting, but whatever. I guess notable is that this one at least has like a sign of human presence. I would say you can see like a trail there on the bottom left. I suppose that could be a natural phenomenon, but I think it's a little too even and well cut in the field there. So that I think it's a trail. I guess it could be an animal trail too, but I want to believe that it's left by humans. So it's like a little mark of like human habitation in this unforgiving looking natural environment. Yeah, it was an alright album cover. Musically, right, so yeah, it's another sampling of kind of spooky neofolk. Once again serving this action up. What can I say? It was an alright listen, but it wasn't particularly, like, nothing super well stood out, because it's really meant as kind of ambient mood music. So it's an hour of that, and it's fine on that front for sure. But nothing really super jumped out to me. So yeah, going for that old-timey tribal / Viking vibes. So that means that there's a lot of percussion-heavy music with some, kind of ominous accompaniment with other instruments. So a lot of clacking and clicking, and then some like really bassy, like low drums. The kind you imagine that there's like a shirtless dude banging with two heavy sticks. It works quite well for that genre. I'd say, like, I enjoyed this. It'd be great for if you need like a spooky Viking theme or something, to go. Like this is mood music. That's very good for that. A little bit, the latter half of the album started to have like some more interesting instruments, because the first half, I would say, is really, really, really like blends in the music. The latter half had at least like I started noticing a little bit more stuff. The first the first song on the album had like I think it's a mouth harp was the thing I heard, the that kind of sound, and it came back a little bit more force towards the end. But there was also you started to hear some string instruments, some kind of old-timey violin kind of thing, and some what else was there? Something popped out to me, but I don't remember anymore, so I guess it wasn't that gripping. The vocals, which there is some amount, it's once again, thankfully, straight up throat singing has been dodged. I mentioned Faria Faraji is someone who has called out that that's not really Nordic music, but it's kind of just snuck its way into neofolk. This one doesn't really do that. What it does do is occasionally have, I would describe it as like Eastern monk chanting, that not exactly throat singing, but the kind of like really low and like just like constant like sound kind of there, which is an interesting vibe. But otherwise, there's also like what sounds like just general chanting of some kind of like tribal group there slipped in. It all works well, I suppose. Yeah. But in closing, I do have to wonder, like, it's all very ominous. That this is what I've noticed now with this and the other neo-folk album we listened to, Furndom, is that they all go for this like really ominous vibe. And same with like the big one, Heilung. Having listened to them, it's the same energy of just everything's a little mysterious and foreboding and kind of like you kind of raises your like apprehension a little bit of what's to come. And like I don't know, like it's just a certain mood like that seems to be, but again it seems to be very like emblematic of this genre. Like if it's slipped into something more jauntier, I guess it wouldn't be so neo-folky anymore. It would come off more as, I don't know, like really like medieval ambient or dungeon synth kind of vibes, the certain genres of those subgenres. So I don't know, but I just made the note that like, man, I'm just being spooked for an hour once again. So yeah, no, I don't hate it. I think it's I might sound like I'm a little down on this album, and I don't think I'm particularly interested in listening to it a second time. But it was a pleasant listen. So if you need like ambient kind of tribal sounding music. If you're running like a D&D campaign that's got like a low-tech Stone Agey vibe, or maybe you're running the Pathfinder Adventure Path Quest for the Frozen Flame, which is really Clan of the Bear kind of, Clan of the Cave Bear kind of vibes going on there, then this might be like really handy to play in the background. Or I guess. Yeah, also the whole Viking energy. If you need like some really spooky Viking energy, then this'll take you there for sure. It's all right on that front. Next up, we have Lady Beast and their 5th album, The Inner Alchemist. Yeah, interesting. Haven't heard of this band before, but this came up as I was looking into upcoming releases, and there is a nice barn owl front and center there. Well, a little bit to the right of the center, but you know what I mean. They're on the table. Very cool, Barn owls, I feel, are especially spooky among owls. I'm pretty sure they're the ones that cause, like, alien sightings, right? Because they just kind of look a bit alien. Their strange countenance. So, strange occult stuff going on in this image, and the owl adds to that nicely. Can't deny that. Otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty cool painting. It's again, as I said, very cool, very esoteric and occult going on, some crazy stuff here. So I dig it, and the cosmic skyline there, also, very trippy altogether. I'm a little iffy about the big old rainbow there because the rest of the image is so muted in its colors. So a bright rainbow clashes with the image quite a bit, or I don't know. But like that's kind of the function of rainbows. It's supposed to be loud and striking. So usually they only blend in, quote unquote, if the image itself is a real riot of colors, and not everyone wants to do that. So it's like I don't know what they would have done otherwise. To make it work better, like how you could have made the rainbow fit in better in this image without compromising the kind of muted coloring everywhere else. Although I will. Part of me wants to wonder what the heck this has to do with alchemy, shooting I-beams that are refracted into a rainbow laser. I don't know. On the other hand, if you look up actual medieval alchemy and like what alchemists were trying to do, it all was a little bit crazy, and the pseudoscience was a bit out of control. It wasn't just guys with beakers and bottles pouring liquids into other stuff, So I think this is still kind of par for the course in terms of alchemy in this image. It's fine on that front. Now musically, this is I guess I don't think there's any other albums quite in this niche in this month. This is the new wave trad metal representative this week. So it's some blazing old school, like galloping heavy metal. You can, find some, Iron Maiden influences for sure there, among other like old-timey acts. And I found it quite a pleasant listen. I think the first 3 songs didn't really hook me yet, and that does kind of drag it down a little bit, because it was pretty typical fare for that galloping heavy metal. I think after that, like they hit you up with Starborn, the 4th song and longest song on the album at 7 minutes long, which I would say that's where the Maiden influences really get out of control. Or, well, maybe they start to ramp up, because that one feels like one of those Children of the Damned type, like big, long, slightly proggy metal songs. It's like, that song's really like, now we're going on a trip. And after that, after one weird interlude with kind of a bit more, the closest to thrash metal on this album, then they kick off with the Maiden influence is out of control for the rest of the album, and yeah, you could say that's a bit derivative, of course, but Maiden itself is a bit polarizing right now with their extremely long prog albums. So this one, when I say this feels like Iron Maiden, I really do mean from like the first album up to Number of the Beast, like that's like simpler Maiden with the occasional prog mixed in. Let's not forget that they had Children of the Grave, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Phantom of the Opera all came from that time too. But like the faster, snappier, more like kind of heroic sounding numbers are there at the end, and I had fun with that. So. Yeah, not an insane album by any means, but like I did find it pretty catchy. So it might be what you're looking for if you need this like more old school hit to go this month. So check it out, please. Settle up, cowpoke. The next album we're looking at is Spiritworld with their 3rd ride around the rodeo, and that's called Helldorado. Yes, it's Spiritworld who does the fascinating combination of Western twang honky-tonk music plus some pretty aggro thrash music, and this is really fun to get to talk about them. I have Spiritworld's first album, Pagan Rhythms. I have on vinyl, because I found it on my Austria trip at a music store, and I was like, I remember this being kind of interesting, so I got it. I haven't really listened to that first album very much, because I only remember in passing a couple of like songs off of it being pretty neat. But I think I gotta give that first album a second pass, second listen to as well, because this Helldorado album slaps real damn hard. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the album cover first, and the bird, of course. The bird is quite easy to spot, that lone raven there flying in the sky alongside this deathly rider here. I don't know, the bird in this image technically wasn't super necessary. Like, this image would have probably worked without it. I think it adds a little bit of energy, a little bit of motion to the picture too, so it's not like it ruins it either. Also, kind of, the way it's gliding along this mysterious ghost rider here really does kind of add like energy, like this dude is some kind of force of nature with even this like bird alongside him. So maybe a little superfluous, but it's fine, it's cool. But, if you want to talk about the wider image here, this is a really fantastic album cover that's just masterfully painted and very cool concept. I mean, an undead cowboy is a really easy pitch for me to go like, hell yeah, baby. So, like I'm already a little bit biased in favor of it, but even so, like the composition and everything here is super neat. This has the energy of like a really, really intense, edgy version of Tex Willer, which is kind of fun. Do folks abroad know what the hell Tex Willer is? I'm not entirely clear why Tex Willer is as popular as it is here in Finland. It's like this long-running comic book series about a seemingly very average-looking cowboy dude and all the weird stuff he gets into in the Wild West. And I haven't really seen the appeal of Tex Willer comics, but I also can't ignore that they're always there in the comic book shelf of the supermarket, and there seems to be endless amounts of them. So I don't know. Please let me know in the comments if you are someone outside of Finland and you are aware of Tex Willer comics, and please tell me if you agree that this kind of has a little bit of that energy of the covers for those albums, those comic book albums. But yeah, really beautiful light work here as well. The glow from the guy lighting his cigarillo, and also the glow of dawn off of that horse there. Just very cool. Altogether, this album cover is sick. And I am also happy to say that I am absolutely delighted by this album also musically. So yeah, having listened a little bit to their first album, my impression was that it was, some pretty aggro, thrash metal. In fact, maybe leaning into slightly more modern metal. I see Hatebreed mentioned. Hatebreed and Lamb of God are dropped in the tags for their Bandcamp album release, and when I read Hatebreed, I was like, oh yeah, that is kind of the energy of this music as well. A really reductive way would be to say, if you enjoyed Outlaw Gentlemen and Shady Ladies by Volbeat, then this would be a more aggro version of that. But no, it starts with a really kind of, a really intense kind of thrashy song with some bouncy western guitar twangs on it, and then it goes through some, again, what I find really catchy thrash metal albums, thrash metal songs, particularly the more angrier, really Slayer comes to mind, or again, as I mentioned, Hatebreed comes to mind, and already the first 3 songs, I'm pretty happy, and the western theme is on point. But then things get insane with the 4th song, appropriately for this show named Bird Song of Death, where now it becomes a straight up punk rock anthem with southern western country twanging mixed in with there's the whoa crowd chants that are so important for a big feel-good punk rock song. And at that point, I was floored, and I was really excited when I listened to that. And it gets even wackier with the 5th song, Prayer Lips, which throws down those really sad romantic lamentation country song that what the hell am I listening to now, with the kind of pretty harsh vocals of what's been there so far. And it just it really works, despite what I'm describing sounds completely insane. And I am not very, very big on country music, so I'm very, very delighted that they have done this really impressive stuff. Then for the wrap up, basically the straight of the rest of the album, it's okay, we had our fun with this silliness, now here's for you metalheads again, and it goes into some real cool, metal songs again. But even there, I'm pretty impressed by the variety with, it's some pretty angry and some pretty bassy at times music, but then there's also some face-melting shredding guitar work in some songs, and it's just really amazing showmanship here. As if just a little final troll. The final song is the least metal song probably on the album. It just feels like a big old bluegrass feel-good anthem to end the album on, where even the harsh vocals feel just a little bit less harsh. But after the trip you've gone on this album, I think it just sums it all up super nicely. This album is also very short, at less than 30 minutes, so it's also, you don't have to worry about it wearing out its gimmick. It just it's very mission focused in delivering this silly cowboy infused thrash punk metal, and it's an absolute delight. This is easy recommendation from me. This is a fantastic album. I had such a good time listening to this. And let's close this month off with Vulvarine, an Austrian all-ladies hard rock metal band, and their second album, Fastlane. Alright, this album cover is really, really cool. Like, at first I was like, seemed alright, but as I have stared at it quite a bit, like, first of all, its vibes are impeccably groovy, and, it's got, like, really great. I really love when you, like, do some great work with only a few colors here. Oh, and I haven't even talked about the bird yet, because I was already jumping into talking about how cool this art is. The bird, of course, yeah, I mean, it's not a hard one here. It's that big old bald eagle there in the top left. I guess you could levy a complaint that the bald eagle is a bit slapped on. I don't think that's entirely true, though. This image is very clearly going, this album art is very clearly going for, like, some real Americana feeling. Especially some 70s Americana with the fashion of this lady, and also that little Klein bust down there. So, if you're gonna get really Americana vibes, yeah, I think a bald eagle is called for. And I do think that, like, that corner of the image would have looked a little bit empty without some kind of object there to balance off the bust. So yeah, it's very on point and adds to the image. But yeah, again, just this image itself, it's just really, really cool. Like, the energy is really haunting because it's nocturnal with that giant moon, so it adds, like, some cool little, a bit mystery, spooky vibes. But then just so few colors used here, gray, blue, and orange and yellow and white, basically, against a black backdrop, and you just got, like, just a killer image going on with some really cool vibes to it. So I'm very much in love with this. I do wonder, the only thing is that looks like a VW bus, if looking at that logo correctly. German car in Americana, I'm not a hundo about that. On the other hand, all the only types of buses I've ever heard talk about are Volkswagens, so, like, if that's some other American, like, tiny party bus brand, let me know, because I'm clearly out of the loop. But yeah, I guess it's still appropriate, because I think you picture 70s hippies, I think it's still a VW. So yeah, no, I ultimately, no real complaints for this image. It's groovy. And the album kicks off really groovy too, with the amazingly titled The Drugs, The Love, and The Pain. Whoa. And yeah, I really love the kind of old school rock energy there, although immediately I'm like, maybe this album is also a third example of something that isn't quite metal, because it really, the fickle line between hard rock and traditional metal is fickle, and this one I think leans more towards just straight hard rock, so it's a little hard to say, but it does start really groovy and I really love it. But after that really amazing first song, I kind of lose the thread. I really hate to say that, because I do think it's competently played, and the singer channels the exact energy you need for this kind of longing 70s throwback rock. But I just couldn't get a grip on any individual songs for a good long while. They just weren't interesting enough to jump out. Only they're just kind of like making me vibe for a bit. Towards the end, you get a couple of more catchy songs. So the songs Polly the Trucker and Cherry Cherry Lady would be songs that I would, recommend out of this selection. And also the final song is an acoustic piece. She'll Come Around, with some cool little like campfire crackling effects in the background. So it really does have the energy of, again, going with this 70s vibe, these free-spirited folks stopping for the night to just play around a campfire. That's a really cool way to close this album and, bring it all together. So I do like that, but it's a big load of, vibes that don't jump out super well. I was gonna say chaff. That's too far going. It's not like bad music, but I do wish it was catchier. But yeah, might be what you're looking for. It's kind of quaint in some way ultimately. So yeah, maybe check it out if that sounded good to you. And that was it for the March edition of Metal Albums with Birds on the Cover. Boy, a lot of screwy choices this month with some, corner cases both on the metal and the bird side, wasn't it? I did warn you about that, but I hope folks enjoyed listening to this all the same. No, but the variety was really great, and there were a lot of really strong albums this month, which means that it's going to be interesting to pick my favorites here. Before jumping into that, I will also say that very cool, very broad representation of women vocalists here that was very fun too, from, really, really cool trad rock, trad metal from, Lady Beast to some even like old schoolier groovy stuff from Vulvarine with its like hard rock celebration, and of course the amazing harsh stylings from Arch Enemy, so very, very, very neat that we got so many perspectives there. And all together, it just thought it was good variety-wise this month, and had some really good fun listening to it. So if we have to think about my favorite album cover this month, there's really only two real choices, although there were some fun ones even outside these two. But it's gonna have to be a duel between Spiritworld and Vulvarine. And this might be a weird choice because I think Spiritworld, of course, is amazing with that ghost cowboy vibe. But I'm actually going to give the edge to Vulvarine for also having such a strong theme with the 70s Americana vibes that, really serve the album well. And also just I'm really impressed by the doing so much with so few colors thing going on there. I'm staring at it, and that wouldn't be my favorite choice for if I had to have a T-shirt with one of these album logos on it. I think they got the right idea with that album cover there, and I'm really, really, really delighted by it. But musically, my favorite is gonna be Spiritworld. I really, really, really dug it. It's interesting, Cult of Fire here got really close too, with its surprisingly interesting, black metal vibings, but I don't know, Spiritworld, since listening to it, it's the one I have actually been listening to again and again since I did, recorded my review segment for it. Like the songs, there are multiple incredibly catchy songs on it, and the off-kilter vibes just are really, really neat. So I really, it's kind of an insane album, but there's genius in the insanity being put in here, with these thrash punk honky-tonk lads. So I had the most fun with that album, and it's going to be my nomination for my favorite. There you go. Well, I won't keep you folks any longer here this time, trying to keep it a little bit lean compared to the crazy ramblings in a couple other months. You do not need to agree with my takes, of course. All I hope is that something here struck your fancy, and if it did, be so kind as to look at the links in the description. You will find trying to link to Bandcamp for these albums. You can check it out and maybe support the artists if you really, really like them. At least listen to them in some places, where they can get some, attention from your listening. I'm sure the artists would appreciate that. So, whatever struck your fancy out of this selection, please consider it. All right? Great. Yeah. April, now then, starting up here, and I think we're still in it for some good music. Looking at some of the albums still coming up in April and May later on, so I am looking forward to starting to do the April episode, And it'll be fun to see what music drops in our lap up then. And I hope you guys look forward to it as well. So, have a good one, everybody. Have a really pleasant April, as spring gets kicked off. And I hope to catch you here at the end of that month then for some more delightful music with some delightful avian creatures on the cover. Yeah? Good. All right. Catch you later, guys. Bye-bye.